The first morning in our new home was supposed to feel like peace, a fresh start after years of deployments, danger, and the kind of chaos you never forget. My wife, Emily, and I had spent months searching for the perfect place to raise our newborn daughter, Harper. We finally settled on a quiet cul-de-sac in a gated community tucked between pine trees and winding roads. The neighbors waved when we drove in. The lawns were neat, the air smelled like fresh-cut grass, and for the first time in a long time, I thought we'd found the calm we both needed. Emily was still recovering from the birth, moving slowly, but smiling through it. I carried boxes from the truck while she sat on the porch with Harper, humming softly to keep her calm. For a man who had served as a Navy SEAL for over a decade, the sight of my wife and daughter in that golden morning light was enough to make everything I'd endured worth it. Peace, finally. That peace lasted about 30 minutes. I noticed her before she spoke. Short haircut, clipboard in hand, walking with a kind of authority only someone self-appointed could carry. She approached the porch like she owned the street, eyes locked on Emily and Harper. Her name, as she later announced, was Karen Whitmore, head of the Homeowners Association. "Excuse me," she said sharply, her gaze flicking from Emily's tired face to the stroller beside her. "We have specific regulations about personal items being left on porches. Strollers, bicycles, toys. They all need to be stored in the garage when not in use." Emily blinked, still holding the baby. "Oh, sorry. I was just—" Karen interrupted, tapping her clipboard. "It's all in the community handbook. Page 7, paragraph 3. You did receive the handbook, correct?" I set the last box down and stepped forward, trying to keep my tone friendly. "Morning. We just moved in yesterday, ma'am. Haven't had much time to unpack yet." Her eyes shifted to me, assessing. "Ah, the new homeowners. Well, we like to keep things orderly here. First impressions matter." I smiled politely. "Understood. We'll keep things tidy." Karen gave a curt nod, but didn't move. Her gaze lingered on Emily, on the baby in her arms. "You should also know there are quiet hours from 9 p.m. to 8 a.m. We have several families nearby who value their rest." I felt my jaw tighten. "Is there a problem?" "Well," she said, lowering her voice conspiratorially, "babies tend to cry at night, don't they? It's just something to keep in mind. Noise complaints can create tension among neighbors." Emily's lips parted in disbelief. She wasn't used to confrontation, certainly not from someone she'd just met. I could see her clutching Harper closer, as if the woman might snatch her away. I stepped closer, keeping my voice calm but firm. "We'll do our best. But babies cry. That's life." Karen's expression hardened. "Of course. I'm just saying, people here like things peaceful. Predictable. We've worked hard to keep it that way." She scribbled something on her clipboard, then turned sharply and walked back toward the street. As she disappeared around the corner, Emily let out a nervous laugh. "Is that normal? HOA people?" I said, shaking my head. "Sometimes they take their job a little too seriously." Emily smiled weakly, rocking Harper. "Well, I hope she's not like that every day." I didn't tell her then, but my gut already told me otherwise. Years of training had honed my instincts, and something about the way that woman looked at us, at Emily, didn't sit right. It wasn't just about strollers or noise or rules. It was control. As I unpacked the last of our gear, I caught sight of Karen's car parked at the end of the street, engine running, as if she were taking notes on every move we made. I brushed it off for the moment, telling myself I was just being paranoid. But deep down, I knew this wasn't over. This wasn't just another neighborly introduction. It was the first move in a battle I didn't see coming, one that would test every bit of patience, restraint, and training I had. And I had no idea that before long, this same woman would do something so insane, so personal, that it would take everything in me not to snap. She wasn't just going to complain about a stroller. She was going to try and take my daughter. The first encounter should have been enough to signal that Karen was difficult. But over the next few days, it became clear that difficult was the understatement of the year. She began showing up unannounced, clipboard in hand, scanning our yard, the porch, even the mailbox. Every minor detail became a violation, From the angle of the welcome mat to the fact that Harper's stroller sat near the front door for a few minutes while Emily carried groceries inside. Emily tried to stay polite, smiling nervously, explaining that we'd just moved in and were still settling. But Karen wasn't interested in explanations. She wanted control, and she wanted to assert it at every turn. One afternoon, she cornered Emily while she was pushing Harper on the sidewalk. "You know, babies crying at night can disturb the neighborhood. I hope you're monitoring her sleep schedule," she said, tapping her wrist as though she could actually enforce it herself. Emily, already sleep-deprived and emotional, bristled but kept her voice soft. "We're doing our best," she said. Karen's tone sharpened. "Doing your best isn't enough. We have rules here. You're responsible for following them. Some of us take the community seriously." It wasn't just about rules. Karen began asking personal questions about Harper's birth certificate, about who she would live with if something happened, about Emily's capacity to care for a newborn. She hovered too long, smiled too thinly, and left just when Emily felt her heart rate spike from anxiety. I started noticing her car more often, parked down the street, sometimes idling quietly while Emily carried Harper inside. Something about her presence didn't sit right. It was possessive, invasive, a predatory focus on our family. By the end of the week, I realized this wasn't about HOA regulations anymore. Karen wasn't just a control-freak neighbor. She had fixated on Emily and Harper. And if she continued unchecked, there was no telling how far she would go. I decided then I would keep a careful eye on her. And while I didn't yet reveal the full extent of my past life to Emily, I knew one thing. If Karen crossed a line, she was about to meet someone who didn't back down, not for petty HOA rules, and certainly not when it came to our daughter. It was a quiet Thursday afternoon when Karen finally overstepped in a way that made my blood run cold. I had stepped out for a quick run to the grocery store, leaving Emily inside with Harper. The house was peaceful, the kind of calm that makes you forget the chaos of the outside world, until the sound of footsteps echoed across the porch. Emily looked up and froze. Karen was there again, standing on the step with that clipboard in hand and a glare sharp enough to cut steel. "Hand the baby over," she demanded, her voice low but filled with authority, as if she had some legal right to issue commands. "I need to inspect her. She's under my supervision now. This is for the community's safety." Emily's heart raced. She clutched Harper to her chest and backed toward the door. I'm not giving you my baby," she said, her voice trembling but resolute. She quickly locked the door behind her and grabbed her phone to call me. I heard the panic in her voice instantly. Sprinting back, my mind shifted from the ordinary to the extreme. Every SEAL training scenario I'd ever rehearsed flashed through my head: threats, intruders, hostage situations. And there she was, an untrained, overconfident HOA bully, trying to take my daughter from my wife. I arrived at the porch silently, my presence immediate and commanding. Karen turned, surprised to see me back so quickly. I didn't yell. I didn't make a move that could escalate things physically. I simply stepped between her and the door. My calm, focused demeanor made her falter instantly. "You need to leave," I said, my voice measured but unyielding. "You are trespassing. You have no right to demand my daughter." Karen's eyes narrowed. "I'm enforcing HOA rules. I can call Child Protective Services if you don't cooperate." I let a small, calm smile cross my face. "Go ahead. I already have copies of everything. And just so we're clear, I'm a retired Navy SEAL. Any threat to my family will be dealt with swiftly and legally." Her bravado faltered. The threat she thought she wielded evaporated in an instant. I kept my gaze steady, unwavering, as law enforcement and our attorney were already on standby. Karen tried to protest, stammering and gesturing wildly, but her words had lost their power. In a matter of moments, she realized she had misjudged us entirely. Emily held Harper close, her relief palpable. I stayed between Karen and the door until the threat was fully neutralized. What had started as an absurd HOA encounter had become a confrontation with real stakes, and Karen learned, too late, that no rule, no regulation, and certainly no self-appointed authority could touch my family while I was around. The aftermath of that confrontation was swift and decisive. Within hours, the local police had arrived, responding to our call and Emily's detailed account. They quickly saw through Karen's story, noting her aggressive behavior and lack of any legal authority to demand access to a newborn. Her threats of calling Child Protective Services dissolved under scrutiny, and she was formally warned for harassment and trespassing. Even the HOA board, embarrassed by the incident, held an emergency meeting and promptly removed her from any position of authority. The neighborhood, once quietly observant, began to shift. Neighbors who had previously waved politely now approached with understanding, apologizing for not stepping in sooner or questioning Karen's increasingly erratic behavior. It was clear that her obsession with control had alienated more than just our family. For Emily and me, life slowly returned to normal. Harper's cries no longer carried the weight of anxiety, and Emily could care for her daughter without fear of sudden intrusion. We strengthened our home's security, not out of paranoia, but as a precaution and a reminder that boundaries exist for a reason. I found myself reflecting on the experience long after Karen was gone. As a Navy SEAL, I had faced threats that required split-second decisions, situations where hesitation could mean life or death. Yet, nothing had prepared me for the idea of someone trying to weaponize authority against a newborn, someone thinking rules and arrogance could replace decency. In the end, the lesson was clear. No matter how calm or controlled someone appears, the instinct to protect family runs deeper than any handbook, any HOA regulation, or any sense of entitlement. You can take the man out of the battlefield, but try to threaten his family, and you will quickly discover that some battles are personal and some lessons are earned the hard way. For Emily, Harper, and me, the quiet returned, but now it was fortified with vigilance, strength, and the knowledge that our family's safety was never negotiable. And as for Karen, she became a cautionary tale, a reminder that power without responsibility is dangerous, and that some lines, once crossed, cannot be undone.